At in this session, signs of the times. So we're going to start at verse 24, Luke 21, verse 24 to 28. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive unto all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And verse 28, and when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. The times of the Gentiles is when, they will go until the end of the tribulation period and the Lord returns. So the Lord has more dealings to do with his people. And then from verse 25, Luke 21:25, the Lord turns to this time which we call the tribulation, and talks about the signs in the sun and the stars and on the earth as well. So there's heavenly signs, there's earthly signs, there's signs among people because their hearts are failing. Amid all the catastrophes that are coming upon the earth. And then the Lord will return. So he kind of summarised it. He doesn't, if you want all the details on that, you've got to go to Revelation. But he gives us enough to know that this is what's going to happen. So we won't go through all this, but this is, the basic plan of times of the Gentiles. See, it starts back in 606 BC with the Babylonian Empire capturing Jerusalem and starting to deport people away from Jerusalem, and then destroying Jerusalem eventually in the temple. So we have the different empires, Babylonian, Persian, Grecian, Roman Empire when Christ came and died for our sins, and different forms of the Roman Empire persisting to the present day. And then we have the rapture, return of the Lord. But before the return of the Lord, we have this in the black here, the tribulation. It's only a short period, 7 years, but Israel repents during that time, 70th week, and then the second coming and the millennial reign of Christ. Now, the reason I bring this up is, which of these eras or dispensations, if you like, is the Lord talking about here in Luke chapter 21? He's referring about, signs in the heavens and on earth, the distress, the perplexity, all these things coming. He's talking about the tribulation period, right? So that's what, when we're talking about signs of the times, what we're doing is interpreting what's happening in the world today in the light of the coming tribulation. All right? And this is a major point. The signs of the rapture, I should say rapture / resurrection, right? But the signs of the rapture are for us, really, the signs of the tribulation period. Now, of course, we can deduce that if these signs are for the tribulation and the rapture comes first, then the rapture's closer than the tribulation, right? That's right. So they are signs of the rapture, but they're not actually for the rapture, they're for the tribulation. And that's an important point. The rapture will also be a key sign to Israel of the Lord's return and of the fulfilment of Scripture. Now, many of them probably won't get it, and the witnesses will go out and explain all this to the Jewish people, and hopefully many, maybe most of them, at least many, will be saved, and that'll be a blessing. We mentioned this before, Daniel 12:4, in the time of the end many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And I believe this speaks of two main things. So what we're going to look at now is some of the things that we have seen in the world, right, happening in the last, I don't know, well, I'm 60, so during my lifetime, I can't speak for others older than me, but I can understand what's happened in your time, even before I was born. But certainly in the last few decades, and of course we see things speeding up, as it were, don't we? So what have we seen? Ease of travel and communication. Many shall run to and fro, knowledge shall be increased. Well, there's lots of cars being made and sold. And for someone who lived, even 100 years ago, they couldn't imagine how many cars there would be in the world today. So many are running to and fro. World travel, at any time they say there is in excess of 2 million people in the air at any one time. So, most of us are air travellers. My first plane I caught was from Sydney to Melbourne, and that was when I was about 21, the first time I got on a plane. And our boys, well, they've been on planes heaps of times, even before they were in high school, let's say early junior high school, they're getting on planes. So things are developing. There's different forms of transport, like, jetpacks and things, and we're going to see more of this. Drones are being used extensively. They can carry people now. I'm not real keen to get in a drone. I'm not real keen to even buy one of these things. You can buy them, apparently. They're only about $500,000. If you've got a spare $500,000, have some fun, but not for me. But there's been an explosion in knowledge. Now, there's a few words here, but until the year 1900, human knowledge doubled approximately every century. By the end of World War II, it was doubling every 25 years. Today, on average, human knowledge is doubling every 13 months. Now, this is probably a year or two, probably a couple of years old. IBM predicts that with the Internet of Things and, of course, AI, this will be even more rapid. Knowledge could potentially double every 12 hours. And I think there's people actually saying that it's heading towards that. So the total sum of knowledge we're talking about in the entire world is doubling. And I don't know whether it's 12 hours now, but it won't be long and it will be. So it's incredible. Can't even get your head around that. So there's a whole list of signs here. And number one is Israel, because Israel is God's timepiece. Right? And the fact that Israel has returned to the land, 1948, it became a nation. It was a nation born in one day. And it was incredible, the events leading up to that. Of course, the Holocaust during World War II, and also World War I. And some say that in World War I, the land was prepared for the people, and in World War II, the people were prepared for the land. And they came together, the people, the land, 1948, it became a nation. And it was recognised internationally as a nation. It still is to this day. That was an amazing thing, because really that's a fulfilment, as we heard, Peter was sharing, remember? Ezekiel 36, 37. 36, the people come back to the land. 37, the dry bones chapter. Can these bones live? Well, they're standing. The bones have all come together and they're standing, but there's no spiritual life in them. And that's still to come. But a great sign, 1948, David Ben-Gurion, and the guy on the picture above him, Theodor Herzl, was the prime mover, I guess you could say, of the Zionist movement to bring Jews back to their homeland. 1895, I think it was. He said, I think it was kind of like a prophecy. Not a divine prophecy, but he said, I believe that within 50 years Israel will be a nation, and he was pretty spot on. Amazing things. It was originally controlled by the British, and then went through various iterations of agreements, land agreements, and then Jordan's still involved today in controlling parts of Israel. So Israel, even today, don't occupy the full land. But then we have the Palestinian Authority and other issues going on there. And it's a land of conflict, isn't it? So it's always in the news. And when you think of how tiny that piece of land is, it's phenomenal. It really is. But God has a plan for the land and for the people. Going right back to Abraham, the land, the seed, and the blessing. 3 things that were promised to Abraham in that original covenant. Let's go to Israel again, but now they are a force to be reckoned with. Ezekiel 37, the skeleton standing. Okay, they're only skeletons, but they're very strong, powerful skeletons, right? In fact, Israel is now a top 20 military force in the world. They have a very good win-loss record, all right? Because in modern times, they've won every war that they've been engaged in. And even other countries, very powerful countries, can't even say that. So they are very strong. And we see this Northern Alliance developing, Ezekiel 38, 39, as we've also heard in the last couple of days. Russia, and then the connections with the Muslim world. And, and Russia is a very, very powerful country, largest country by geography in the world, and quite wealthy. You wouldn't think that Russians would be, as a country, that wealthy, but they are. And they have a lot of resources to sell to the rest of the world, but very, very powerful. And of course, Mr. Putin is one of the most powerful characters in the world. So we see this alliance happening. I won't go into great detail with it, but we see Turkey, and I know Peter shared this, but Turkey really is becoming a major political force. It really is. And being sort of, kind of almost in between, like you say, Europe and the Middle East, very strategic, very important in terms of end time events. So they will feature. Also Iran, and of course Iran is Israel's greatest enemy and supports all these other entities like Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Yemenites, and all of these are financially supported and given weapons by Iran. Iran has one goal in terms of Israel, and that is to wipe it off the map. And that's why Israel, and now supported by the Trump administration, is saying, and Israel's been saying this for a long time, we cannot allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Because as soon as they develop one, they're going to use it. And they call Israel a one-bomb conflict. It only takes one bomb to wipe Israel off the map. But of course, God won't allow that to happen. That's right. But Iran is trying, and it's only because, it's ultimately God, isn't it? It's only God. When you think about all the might of Israel and their defence force, and and the Mossad and all this sort of stuff, which they're very proud about. But ultimately, we know it's God. It's only God that protects them. But they regularly do raids, like sorties into Iran to bomb a nuclear plant or whatever it is. You don't hear much about it in the news. You certainly don't hear much about it on the Australian media, mainstream media, but it happens all the time. So here we go. We've got this confederation developing. Iran, Libya, Ethiopia. You've got Sheba and Dedan, merchants of Tarshish and the young lions thereof, represented by a US flag there, and they have a very big presence. The US has a very big presence in that area. And they're the ones that actually push back a little bit and say, why are you coming down to attack Israel? But for whatever reason, and I don't know what happens, but for whatever reason, they're not capable of stopping this campaign from occurring. A big thing in Israel, apart from what's been happening there in the last couple of years, has been the preparations for the third temple. And we know there must be a temple in Israel during the tribulation, and we assume that it's part of the agreement of peace, the covenant that is made between Israel and the Antichrist. All right, that okay, let's make this peace agreement, and as part of the agreement, we will allow you to build this temple. And we know that's going to happen because at the midpoint of the tribulation, the Antichrist defiles the temple and sets up his abomination. And even Jesus told us all about this in Matthew chapter 24. So there must be a temple. There's no temple there now. You say, well, the Lord can't return now. Well, that's not true because, the rapture can't occur now. You might say there's no temple. But the Israeli people, and this is only a mock-up, all right? This is not a picture, a photo. But the Jewish people have been working on this for a long, long time. There's an institute, a temple institute. They've got the plans. They've got the furniture. They've even training the priests. And all of these things are happening in preparation for this temple. Now there is area on the temple compound for a temple. They don't. Some people say, "Oh, well, the mosque will have to be destroyed." No, there is area, and in fact, the area that is remaining where the temple could be built is closer to the eastern gate than what the mosque is. So it kind of makes sense. Now, I don't know. The Jews probably know exactly where that temple was and where it has to go. All right. Currently, the Jordanians actually have control of that Temple Mount. Well, when I say the Jordanians, the Palestinian and Arab Authority. But as part of the agreement, that will be handed over. That allowance to build. When it happens, it'll happen very quickly. Very, very quickly. You know why? Because the temple has to be prefabricated. Yep. They're not allowed to build the temple literally like in terms of fashioning the stones and that sort of thing on the site. They have to do it off-site. And this goes back to the law of Moses, right? And to bring it onto the site and assemble it. So it has to be prefabricated. So who knows? Maybe they've already started prefabrication. I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised. There's that Temple Institute. They're training the priests. They know who the priests are by genealogy now with the use of DNA. They can identify the line of Aaron and the Kohanim, right, which is a Kohath, right? It's one of the sons of Aaron. They call them Kohanim. That's why you hear the surname Cohen, and then you see that surname Cohen. That's the Jewish surname. They're training the priests, and they're actually doing trial runs of various offerings and sacrifices and that even today. So Israel's a timepiece. Some say the hour hand is the nation of Israel, the minute hand is Jerusalem, and the second hand is the third temple. So that's what we're watching very, very closely. because when it comes to the temple and things, we know that the time is drawing near. Number 5, the interfaith movement is really gaining momentum, isn't it? Religious, I've called it here interfaith movement, you might call it ecumenical movement. It's certainly going to be headed and is developed by Rome and Roman Catholicism. The Bible's very clear talking about Rome and how it features in the end times, and somehow is connected, politically with Europe, and then will finally be destroyed. But many of you probably have heard or seen this. I'm not sure if anyone has actually visited this. This is in Abu Dhabi. So if you're flying, who is it? Emirates, is it? Abu Dhabi? If I was flying Emirates and I was stopping over in Abu Dhabi, I'd probably try and get an extra night or two there and go and visit. This is up and running, this place. Opened in 23, sponsored by Pope Francis. How about that? Who would have thought? But it's a Catholic church, it's a mosque, an Islamic mosque, and a synagogue, all on the one ground. And of course, these are what we call, the Catholic Church was supposed to be representing the Christian faith, right? So we have Christian, Islam, and Judaism, all combined, all monotheistic religions, all going back to Father Abraham. That's why it's called the Abrahamic family house. We're all one big family, and yet some want to kill the others. So I'm not sure how that works, but we do have family feuds, but yeah. And look, just a note here on the synagogue and Judaism. We love the Jewish people. We support God's, we know God's plan for Israel. But Judaism is a false religion. It's a false religion. And you talk to someone like, and I've spoken to a number who've come out of that, and one particularly made this point to me that Judaism is actually satanic. And Jesus actually denounced it. This is the kind of, condemnation that Jesus had for the Pharisees. It's not the original Mosaic law and that Jesus was condemning. It was all the rules and regulations and everything that forms the Judaistic system that we have today. Signs of the time: revived Roman Empire. Now, this is Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. You remember Daniel 2 is the image, and what's Daniel 7? The beast, the 4 beasts, right? Same kind of outline of the times of the Gentiles, and of course the revived Roman Empire is the new Babel. Right? Babel means confusion, and that's when God confounded the languages at the Tower of what became known as the Tower of Babel. It was actually Nimrod was involved with that. But we see the revived Roman Empire getting stronger and stronger. You've seen this a couple of times. And it does this verse refer to revived Rome. Revelation 13:3, I saw one of its heads. Remember the heads, the 7 heads? And one of the heads was wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So is this actually a physical wounding of the head and a revival, like does this person, this beast, is he assassinated and then somehow brought back to life, or is he assassinated and then the image of the beast, like with AI and robotics and all that, representing him? I mean, these are questions, speculations, all right? But is this revived Rome, the deadly wound that was healed? Maybe it's both. I don't know. These are some of the answers I don't have personally. Tom has all the answers, so if you want to ask him. Spirit of Babylon, certainly there is the spirit of Babylon, referred to as the mystery. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. So, okay, they that dwell on the earth and their names are not written in the book of life. Who are we talking about? Unsaved people, right? They're unbelievers. So when you see that term, those that dwell on the earth, it's talking about, because it comes up a number of times in Revelation, those that dwell on the earth are the unbelievers. And they are wondering about this beast who was but is not. So there's been some recovering or revival or resuscitation or whatever it is. When they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. But when we talk about the EU, there's been a lot of talk recently about an EU army. Now we have NATO, of course, North Atlantic Treaty Organisation, which is like a European army, but it's made up of different militaries from different nations, right? And of course the most prominent nation of the NATO alliance is America. America, even though you say, well, hang on, what's the North Atlantic? What's America? America's over there and Europe's up there. Why are they in Europe? Well, after the Second World War, they got this alliance together to try and make sure that Europe doesn't explode again, right, into a regional conflict. That was the whole idea of NATO. But America, even to this day, provides about 70% of the funding of NATO. And that's what Trump was kicking up a stink about, because he said, we can't sustain this. You know, all you guys over there in Europe, you need to lift your game. You need to start spending more money on your own military rather than relying on us, right? And so really, America, whatever you think of America, you know, just don't talk to Tom. But whatever you think of America, it is like a police force in the world. It is. They have something like 80 plus military bases around the world, and some of those bases are actually here in Australia. I'm sure you know. So if America was pulled out, there would be a big void in terms of the security of the world. And you know, and this is why Trump's saying, look, you know, we're okay with that, but we don't want to pay for it all. You guys in Europe, you need to jump on board. You need to cough up. So they're talking about an EU army, and all the European nations are starting to spend more money, which is good. But what does that mean? Well, perhaps, you know, there will be a European, you know, like there's a European Parliament, a European Union, there will be a European military force. And that's interesting, because maybe that will become one of the major players instead of relying on the US, that Europe will virtually stand alone. Number 7, global governance. Well, we know about this. WEF, the World Economic Forum, seems to think that they can control the world, or they certainly want to. WHO wants to control us, condition us to accept control. There's been this pandemic prevention, preparedness and response accord going around the world, instigated by the World Health Organization. Now keep in mind, of course, just recently, America, and I think it was, who was the other nation? Brazil, that pulled out of... Argentina pulled out of the WHO. So this was on the back of COVID, right? And they were going around and trying to bully countries into signing this accord, so that in the event of another pandemic, we would give them control, and they would tell us what we have to do in that situation. Well, there was a fair bit of pushback, fortunately, but there's still a lot of silly people out there in the world that were actually prepared to sign this. So, you can see where it's all heading. Our old mate Klaus Schwab said the pandemic presents a rare window of opportunity to reimagine and reset our world. Well, it didn't quite happen. He didn't quite pull it off the way he wanted to. But you can guarantee he hasn't given up. And even if old Klaus gets a bit old and moves on, there'll be someone else to take his place. So they have a big plan. We won't go through all this, but they have a great reset plan. And most of this is on their website. You can just go there and have a look at it for yourself and see what they're on about. They have sustainable development goals. They use the right language, don't they? All this lingo. It's got to be sustainable, and it's got to be goals, and all of this stuff. 17 goals they have, and they want to achieve all of this by 2030, which is not that far away now, is it? So they're going to probably start stressing. But a lot of this they're pushing, like you've got the gender equality, all this sort of stuff here, which we don't have time to get into. But the ambitions of the WEF: you will own nothing and you'll be happy. And they'll own everything and they'll be a lot happier, so as they say. But that's their ambitions. Environmental scoring, smart cities, 15-minute cities, central bank digital currencies, AI, subscriptions for everything in life, Oh, it's interesting, isn't it, how we're subscribing to everything. Yep. You get subscriptions for your phone, for your software, and you can subscribe to get food, delivered and all this sort of stuff. Eventually we'll subscribe, everyone will have a subscription to a car, and you'll just, call your car up or you jump into one and this sort of thing. They want to control population growth and health, which they've had a pretty good crack at recently, and you can see it coming more and more, all right? And also they want to control speech, behaviour, and you might think this is a bit of a stretch that they're going to actually control thought, but this is coming. Not just controlling speech, what we say, and not just controlling what we do, but actually controlling how we think. And to a certain extent, they've already programmed us to a certain extent in this way. Let's be honest. I mean, if you watch mainstream media every night, you're already programmed to a certain extent, aren't you? So there'll be more and more of that. All right, moving along. Digital permission-based currency, mark of the beast, Revelation 13. Well, Revelation 13 is pretty clear, isn't it? That no man should buy or sell except they have a mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, digital identity or digital currency is not at this point in time the mark of the beast. I don't believe it's not connected. It doesn't have the identification of the beast, but it's the system that's being developed. So, and really, you can jack up about it and try and push back, but bit by bit, we're just falling into line, aren't we? Let's be realistic. I mean, yeah, okay, cash is still around for a while, but something's going to take it out. Now, maybe the next crisis, I don't know. I mean, if the next crisis is actually a massive digital attack, like a cyber attack, well then cash will actually be a good thing. It's a good thing to actually keep some cash on hand, because we've seen instances where the whole internet's gone down and businesses can't transact. You can't go and buy petrol. You're stuck. So cash is still around, but it's coming. And you might say, oh, this is a way off yet. This is a way off yet. But here's the thing. We, in our lifetime, we've seen things happening faster and faster and faster and faster. So when something happens, it happens very quickly, doesn't it? I mean, look at COVID. I mean, it came quickly, very quickly. And next thing you know, it like literally within weeks, it affected the entire world. Now, I'm not saying in terms of, ill health and people dying. Well, there was a bit of that, of course. But what I'm saying is in terms of control. And so, don't be lulled into thinking, oh, this is a way off, we're not going to see this. Things happen very, very quickly. Now, we have different forms of transaction now, even waving a hand over, over a sensor, which they have in China. It reads your palm. But these things are coming, whether it be reading your eyes or your palm, or it won't be long, it'll be a chip, or it'll be something on your head or your hand. It's all there, the system's there and ready to be used. And keep in mind that the beast doesn't introduce this system until halfway through the tribulation period. So it could be sooner than we think. But now they apparently there's things on all like the packets and that in the supermarket that you put it all in a trolley, wheel it out, and there's a sensor that picks up all the little tags and deducts your bank account. So just by walking straight out of the supermarket. Don't try that without checking with the supermarket. We could get into biotech, transhumanism, genetic engineering, a lot of things going on in that space in the world today. I mean, really, who would know what's going on in these laboratories and things going on? Hybrid humans, the Bible says a number of times the beast is different. What's the word? Diverse. He's different from the others. Now, is he different just because he looks different? There's something strange about this guy, right? Strange. So maybe he is transhuman or whatever, I don't know, but pretty scary stuff. The Bible talks in Daniel 2 about a mingled seed. Whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Well, what's that talking about? Who's the they? They shall mingle themselves.
Sounds suspiciously like Nephilim.
Well, Nephilim, and I remember Chuck Misler bringing this point out. He said the Nephilim is not about being giants, even though back in Genesis 6 they were giants, but he said that's not the main focus of the Nephilim. The Nephilim were a corruption of a genetic corruption, basically. So we could see that coming down the line. Old mate Elon Musk is doing some good things over in the US, but I'm not sure about this guy. He's got a company called Neuralink, which has approval for the study of brain implants in humans. Now they've done these implants in animals and that, in monkeys or whatever, and now he's trialling them in humans. Now there's a good aspect to this, like people might be able to see again or walk again or do this or do that. But obviously there's also the potential for great evil. Number 10, the rise of demonic activity, UFOs and violence. Where do we get this from? Matthew 24 talks about the days of Noah. They were days of violence and they were days of demonic activity. And that's what we see today. There's been public meetings on UFOs and unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs. And there's been strange sightings going on, so keep an eye on that space. Also, in terms of violence, in 2023, I'm not sure how it worked out, but it was on track in the US at least for mass killings to reach a record number. And at one stage there were more mass killing, and mass killing is defined as being, I think, 4 or more people being killed in the one incident. There were more mass killings in the US than there were days in the calendar year up to that point in time. And so, you know, we sort of get used to this because we get fatigued, don't we? We get news fatigue. So, oh, there's another mass killing. Oh, yeah, who cares? Like, who's interested? But, you know, whereas what? 10, 15, 20 years ago, that would have been major frontline news. Not just for one episode, but it would have been ongoing. Whereas now it's like, oh, yeah, there's been another killing. So that's what's happening. Number 11, developments in AI, artificial intelligence. But there's developments in this space. AI is capable of manipulating our thoughts, and the Bible talks about strong delusion and the mystery of iniquity in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. So there's going to be strong deception, great deception and delusion, and part of this will be thanks to developments of AI. Australian scientists actually have been involved in this project of learning to manipulate human behaviour, a digital form of human behaviour. And this is one of the missing things, you know, we think, well, AI is just like, it's just a machine or a robot, you know, it's just a machine. But it doesn't think, it doesn't have feelings and emotions and that sort of thing. Well, now they're actually programming it somehow or other to have emotions, you know, inverted commas, emotions. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, actually. Yeah. ChatGPT, of course, I haven't struck up the courage to download this to my phone, but many have. But if you get someone to just talk to it and ask it to make a poem about Steve here, and, you know, you put in a couple of things, you know, WA, whatever, it'll come up with a poem within seconds. And you can even say, make it a humorous poem, and it'll come up with a few jokes. But it's phenomenal what these things can do, you know. And you can ask it to even do drawings, like make up drawings or whatever, like these deep fakes, you know. And Revelation 13 talks about deceiving them that dwell on the earth. There's that the expression again, them that dwell on the earth, right? By means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. So, and it talks about it making an image to the beast, which had the sword, wound by sword, and did live. And the implication there is the wound was a fatal wound, right? Not just a cut, but a fatal wound. And somehow or other, this beast, this person, has come back to life. So, is it a deep fake? Is it some kind of robot or whatever? I don't know, but certainly signs of the times. And I can't see these two guys, you know, literally on the back of a motorbike. I just can't see it. But anyway, you know, I mean, one of them can't even seem to ride a bicycle. Now, number 12, rise of the kings of the east. This is interesting because, you know, China and India, very populous countries. In Revelation 16, we talk about them coming across and joining in the battle, being prepared for battle. The figure of 200 million is mentioned. And John says, I heard the number, just in case, you sure you got that right? No, I heard the number. It was 200 million. And so we're not surprised by that now. But in John's day, there wasn't even 200 million people in the whole world. So, you know, it's like, are you sure about that? No, I heard the number. But now, of course, we know 200 million, China and India could raise an army of 200 million. So keep an eye on the kings of the east, and because things going on there. India, well, we're pushing into India with Herald of Hope, you know, with a lot of our publications and things. fantastic opportunities for the preaching of the gospel. Not so much China, it's a bit more closed, but there's an underground church there that's very strong. But certainly India is a mission field. But think about, in terms of military power, US number 1, Russia number 2. Guess who's number 3? China. You're probably not surprised. And guess who's number 4? This might be a surprise, but number 4 is India. So there you go. Kings of the East are certainly coming to the fore. Top 10 countries with the highest military personnel. We have that's a surprise, Vietnam, isn't it? 10 million. North Korea, 7 million. Go down to India, 5 million. China, 4 million. Russia, and then the US is right down number 7, 2 million. That's still a lot. And Australia is not even on the list. Moving along, number 13, revival of global anti-Semitism set up for the covenant of peace. Well, we see that. The surprise attack, October 7, on Israel by Hamas, the worst attack since Yom Kippur and the worst massacre since World War II. And this has really changed things dramatically in that part of the world. And it's incredible what they uncovered and the attempts that they went to gain access. This is the unfortunate result, and this is what the Gazan people have to return home to. So we'll see what happens there. But there has been a rise in anti-Semitism through this, and you've probably noticed it. There's been attacks in Sydney and other places, and we believe this is going to develop more and more. Israel has the right to defend its people and its country, and yet more and more they're being blamed for every bad thing that happens over there. So now how does this fit in? Well, obviously the world is, the whole world is going to eventually turn. When I say the whole world, okay, not necessarily the whole world, but the majority of the world is going to turn against Israel and one day attack them. Now, of course, there will be a person who arises to make a peace agreement, and we believe that to be the Antichrist, Daniel chapter 7. He'll confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And so we can see this kind of the setup, can't we? You can see the setup. And they're looking for a man who will solve the problem there in the Middle East. And this invasion will occur when the Bible says when they dwell safely. And fortunately, this invasion will fail, and it will result in the salvation, the national conversion, you could say, of Israel. But that's after the rapture. So don't be deceived. That day will not come, the Bible says, except there come a falling away, and I believe with many others that just talking about the rapture, because it's a departure. All right. That's a study for another time, but you can read books on it. Because it says, unless there come a falling away first, right, and then that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. All right, the day will not come, except there comes this first, and then the man of sin. And this is actually, this whole system is repeated. That's chapter 2, verse 3. And then you go down to verse 7 and 8. It basically says the same thing. The mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now lets or restrains will restrain until he be taken out of the way, and then that wicked will be revealed. The wicked one will be revealed. It says the same thing. Something's going to have to happen before Antichrist is revealed. And not just happen, but something's going to be taken out of the way, and we believe that's the rapture of the church. Well, we're looking forward to that, aren't we? Yeah. And it could happen morning, noon or night. So be prepared. Look, in this in terms of signs of the times, there's a lot of speculation, and we can go right out on a limb, and it's all right to talk about these things. Yeah. But whatever you do, don't get too far away from what the Bible actually says, right? Or you're going to be in trouble, all right? Because if you go out too far on a limb, guess what happens? Yeah, exactly. So don't go out on a limb. Stick within the bounds of Scripture, because there's enough here for us to know that the time is short, and we need to be ready. And look, whether it's the rapture or the resurrection, we still need to be ready, don't we?
Yeah, that's right.
When is your time up? I don't know. When's my time up? I have no idea. My dad, my birth dad, he died at 38. 38 years of age. Had a massive heart attack. And I was only 13 months old. So his time was short. Fortunately, praise God, I've lived a lot longer. But all of our time's coming to an end. So that's the most important thing, to be ready for whenever the Lord calls.